Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. Truly is. Before we get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next. If you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it. So, we are True Crime at Christmas Time, day 18. Today we're talking about the Oakland warehouse fire. The ghost ship was a 10,000 square foot cement block warehouse that was constructed in 1930. It was purchased by a man named Chor NG in 1998. Chor owned 17 other properties in the San Francisco Bay Area. In 2013, Chor leased the property to a man named Derek Almina. Their lease agreement states that the property would be used as an art collective building for theatrical sets and workshops for community outreach. Almina lived on the second floor of the warehouse with his wife and children, and he would be the one that would give it its name, the ghost ship. The first floor of the warehouse was illegally subletted to 25 residents that Almina charged between $300 and $600 a month in rent. Then he would take the rent money and use that to pay his rent for the warehouse, and he would use the rest to throw parties like the one that was thrown on December 2nd, 2016, and use the rest for himself and his family. If ever asked, he instructed the tenants to say that the ghost ship was a 24-hour art studio and that they did not live there. Because use of the ghost ship for housing and entertainment was illegal. The living spaces on the first floor were connected by makeshift hallways that were constructed by salvaged materials, such as pianos, organs, windows, wooden benches, and lumber that were stacked on top of each other. The rooms were separated by things such as wooden studs, steel beams, doors, window frames, bed frames, railings, pianos, benches, chairs, intact motorhomes and trailers, portions of trailers, metal sheeting, tapestries, plywood, sculptures, tree stumps, tree limbs. What? And a partridge in a pear tree. One of the residents came out to say that the entire building was powered by extension cords, and she was so nervous that she would actually sleep in her car. Smart.
Shortly after I moved in, the transformer blew, and we had no electricity. And I was asking, well, how come we're not calling PG&E? Well, that's when I found out it was an illegal hookup to PG&E.
Since 1998, the city has received 10 formal complaints about the warehouse, from hazardous garbage to construction debris around the building. November 13th, 2016, less than 1 month before the fire, the city opened an investigation based on complaints. November 17th, 2016, the city showed up for an inspection, but when no one answered the door, they were forced to leave. Because the city is required to get permission from the owners before they're allowed to enter the building for an inspection. If this fails, then they must receive a court order to do so. But they never did that. Police and fire officials warned Derek Almina that the warehouse was a fire hazard, but he chose to ignore it. The vice president of the local firefighters union said that if he hadn't been so understaffed for years, a fire marshal would have shut that place down. But that doesn't help now. Shut up. What? Is that supposed to make them feel better? That doesn't help. In 2014, an electrician found underground panels and deferred maintenance that dated back decades. He told the owner that a single transformer was meant for lighting, was being used for the business that Chor owned, and it exceeds its capacity. December 2nd, 2016. A man named Max Harris hosted an electronic music concert in the warehouse. There were between 80 to 100 people at the event. Derek's wife and children would leave and go to a hotel for the night so the children wouldn't be disturbed and they could get a good sleep. The fire happened extremely quickly and it came with thick black smoke. On top of this, the warehouse was extremely cluttered. There were no fire alarms or sprinklers in the building. So basically, by the time the people on the second floor realized what was happening, it was too late. Okay, so let me tell you about the victims because since it's always a huge priority of me to humanize any victims in my story, it is a little longer because there are a lot of them. If you want to skip through it, you can. I would ask you to watch it so you know who they are, but that's completely up to you. All right, let's start. 22-year-old Cash Askew was a transgender guitarist from Oakland, California. A year before her death, she told a sex-positive feminist website that as a transgender woman, she wanted to use her platform to work on being more assertive. 33-year-old MB was an Oakland poet that also worked as a barista and baker. She was described by his ex-roommate as the best person in the world. 34-year-old Jonathan Birnbaum was a native of Berkeley, California. He worked as a VJ at a club where he would create a visual experience by mixing lights, colors, and images. 35-year-old Barrett Clark was a sound engineer, DJ, outdoorsman, and connoisseur of culture. It is said that he could make any band sound great and that he was loved by so many in the music and art community. 24-year-old David Klein was an Oakland resident that played the clarinet and loved volleyball. Before enrolling in UC Berkeley in 2011, he led his high school volleyball team to the state championships and played the clarinet for 10 years. 28-year-old Micah Danemeyer was performing when the fire broke out. Before he lost his life that night, he had found love, formed an electronica band, and was beginning to discover his niche in the Oakland art scene. 35-year-old Billy Dixon was a guitarist, a keyboard player, a beatboxer, and a music producer. A friend of his said after his death, there are people who make music and people who perform music. He performed, but he was a musician first. He made music. 33-year-old Chelsea Faith Dolan was a vision of energy, music, and creativity. She made electronic music under the stage. This was a skill she picked up during a trip to Japan at the age of 15. 35-year-old Alex Gassan was an independent filmmaker who was praised for his gift of sharing the other people's stories. His films often focused on the weak and oppressed that were trying to find their voice. 25-year-old Nick Gomez Hall loved his guitar, white pickup truck, his collection of LP records, and his countless friends. He was described as a person that had a special joy in life and that loved every minute of it. 20-year-old Michaela Gregory was a student at San Francisco State University, where she studied child development. Her drive in life came from helping children. She worked at Urban Outfitters and attended the show that evening with her boyfriend, 22-year-old Alex Vega, who loved working on cars. He was also captivated by the arts, from urban graffiti and painting to electronic music. 30-year-old Sarah Hoda was a teacher at the Urban Montessori Charter School in Oakland. She was described as warm and caring, just the kind of person that parents wanted their children to learn from. 35-year-old Travis Hugh was one of the musical geniuses behind the band Ghost of Lightning. Friends of his say they will remember Travis for his positivity and his ability to always make a situation fun. He brightened every room that he walked into and was always there for a good laugh. 34-year-old Johnny Igaz was described as a mentor and ally to women and the LGBTQ community. The Oakland resident and DJ had a love for music, from hip-hop to techno to house. 29-year-old Ara Jo was a visual artist who would paint bright and colorful murals. She worked for a Berkeley art and drafting supplies store and for an Oakland clothing store. She was very outgoing and super social. She enjoyed friends, books, and online magazines. 32-year-old Donna Kellogg was a freewheeling, free-spirited person. She loved to play the drums, and she would do so with passion. She was an Oakland resident who worked as a barista at a high-wire coffee shop. 32-year-old Amanda Kershaw was a photographer that would take pictures at underground concerts. She was fond of photography, walking around town, insects, and fighting for the environment. She liked loud music in close quarters, and you would always see her with her camera around her neck. For 34-year-old Edmund Lepine, music was always a constant in his life. He taught himself to play guitar when he was little and played in a number of bands before deciding to start working as a DJ. People tended to gravitate towards him, and he was always surrounded by his friends. 23-year-old Griffin Madden was a 2015 graduate with a double major in philosophy and Slavic languages. He was described as having a quest for knowledge and an enthusiasm for learning things. He was incredibly inquisitive, a hard worker, and always had a question about something. 36-year-old Joseph Matlock is what people in the music industry call lifers. This basically means that he didn't care if people came to his shows or bought his music. This wasn't the reason he did it. The reason he did it was that he had music in his soul. He was considered famous for his punk and electronic music in certain circles in Oakland. 36-year-old Jason McCarty became interested in music at the age of 3. As he grew up, his interests branched out into illustration, design, photography, music, and painting. He's also done artwork, comics, wrote, and illustrated books. He was described as someone with a big soul who would give everything he had to help someone else. 17-year-old Draven McGill was a member of the elite public high school's vocal department as well as the Pacific Boy Choir Academy. He was the son of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. The office was responsible for retrieving the bodies from the warehouse. 35-year-old Jennifer Mendiola had a goth flair and could dance like no one else. On top of this, she was 1 year away from graduating with her doctorate in health psychology. At the time of her death, she was in counseling trying to save her 8-year-old marriage. Her husband had no answers for her whereabouts for 5 days following the fire. During her separation, she dated Michael Danemeyer, the 28-year-old that also died in the fire. 21-year-old Jennifer Morris was described as sincere and gentle with a singing voice that could stop you in your tracks. She was enrolled in UC Berkeley majoring in media studies. She attended the show with her best friend and roommate, 21-year-old Vanessa Plotkin. She was also a junior at UC Berkeley. The last message she sent to her mother was the heart eyes emoji and a heart. Her family would have to wait 3 days for answers about her whereabouts. 29-year-old Farrell Pines, who previously went by Riley Fritz, was a garage band bass player and art school graduate. She was always seen with her rescue dog. She was described as very soft, sensitive, and caring, just a gentle soul. 61-year-old Wolfgang Renner was the oldest person to perish in the fire. Wolf was a musician who wrote and performed electronic keyboard music. He enjoyed loud tunes, spirited dancing, and good times. He was described as charming, intelligent, and a little crazy. 32-year-old Hannah Rowicks was described as someone who radiates joy, smiling, and laughing. She was engaged to 35-year-old Alex Gossin, and the two had plans of marrying and going to Europe. 32-year-old Benjamin Reynolds was an Oakland musician. He sang jazz at a local bar and played electronic beats at venues. 29-year-old Nicole Segrist was described as she was fiercely individual, fiercely creative, and fiercely opinionated. She played the synthesizer and the omnichord in her band alongside Ben Reynolds and Travis Hugh. 37-year-old Michelle Sylvan would always be making clothes. She would design, cut out the patterns for, and sew to fit on a dressmaker's dummy. Her clothing was not reserved, but her personality was. 31-year-old Jennifer Tanyu was the music manager for the smartphone app Shazam, the app that identifies a song just by hearing a short clip of it. She was described as a vibrant person who was always smiling and going to concerts. She had an underground nail bar at the Ghost Ship warehouse where she would paint designs on people's nails. 38-year-old Peter Wadsworth was an artist, entrepreneur, computer expert, and walking, talking encyclopedia of knowledge and trivia. He lived in the Ghost Ship warehouse. Because 31-year-old Nick Walworth did clerkships at the U.S. Court of Appeals and District Court in San Francisco, the lawyer would have had his pick of law firms to work for. His plans were to specialize in intellectual property litigation, patents, and copyrights. He'd also planned to do as much pro bono work as possible. And last but by no means least, 32-year-old Brandon Chase Woodnauer was described as a talented and devoted electronic musician who regularly supported his friends by attending their art and music events.
Bodies from the warehouse in Oakland after that fire ripped through the building. They plan to spend the next few days looking for whoever else did not make it out alive.
It's Oakland's worst fire since the Oakland firestorm in 1991. But Alameda County Sheriff's officials delivered some good news. They located dozens of people thought to be missing. Dozens of others remain unaccounted for, and that's why crews are strategically searching through that warehouse.
We have photos of what it looked like inside before the fire. Officials described it as a maze with all kinds of clutter in there. Look at all the pianos, the wooden pieces that could easily go up in smoke, wires, beams, metal, and the wood that was everywhere.
And then take a look at crews tonight just pulling out all the debris that fueled that fire. Bulldozers are now carefully helping in this process. Officials tell us they're also using robots and dogs to locate any potential victims.
Okay. That's the victims. All right, let me give you the timeline. December 2nd, 2016. A fire breaks out at 11:20 p.m. during a concert at the Ghost Ship warehouse, a building that housed artists but was not permitted for housing and entertainment use. The fire began on the first floor and trapped partygoers on the second floor. It took firefighters 5 hours to put the fire out, and 36 people died in the blaze. December 3rd, 2016, Ghost Ship Master Tenant Derek Almina writes in a Facebook post, "Everything I worked so hard for is gone." He never mentioned the victims in this post. December 5th, 2016, ABC News tracks down Almina at a hotel and asks him to comment.
Almina is the man who ran the illegal artist enclave at the Ghost Ship warehouse. Since the fire, stories have been surfacing about how he allegedly ignored repeated warnings that his artist enclave was a death trap. He was then criticized for a Facebook post soon after the fire that many thought to be insensitive, saying how upset he was about losing his furniture and art collection. Well, tonight we asked him what he would like to say to the 33 families who lost their loved ones.
People have been wondering if you have anything to say to them.
They're my children. They're my friends, they're my family, they're my loves, they're my future. What else do I have to say?
And that was all Almina would say before walking away with his wife, Mika Allison. It's unclear how long they'll be staying here at the Marriott. They did not check in under their names, and it's not known if their 3 children are here as well.
December 7th, 2016, city officials claim that building inspectors had not been inside the Ghost Ship warehouse in the past 30 years. It was later revealed that weeks prior to the fire, an inspector for the Planning and Building Department went to the property after it received a complaint of debris. The inspector was not able to enter the building, and the city issued a citation a few days later. December 23rd, 2016, the parents of 2 of the fire victims filed lawsuits against the owner and the building, the primary tenant, and the event promoter. January 23rd, 2017, lawyers for Derek Almina, the primary tenant, claim that the fire originated in the building next to the Ghost Ship warehouse, and therefore Almena was not responsible for the blaze. February 8th, 2017. Documents released by the City of Oakland show that several city agencies, including the Oakland Police, visited the warehouse 35 times in the months and years leading up to the fire. March 14th, 2017. Oakland Fire Chief Teresa Reeds announces her retirement amid questions of inspection procedures and management following the fire. It could be a coincidence, I guess. Could be convenient. March 18th, 2017. Oakland City Attorney's Office is criticized for not sharing a critical report prepared by the fire department about the fire with the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. March 24th, 2017. The East Bay Times reports that the son of the building owner knew there were electrical problems at the ghost ship 2 years prior to the fire. June 5th, 2017. Derek Almena and Max Harris are arrested and charged with felony involuntary manslaughter. The owner of the building is not charged. Almena makes his first court appearance. June 19th, 2017. A report issued by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, along with the Alameda County Arson Department and the Oakland Fire Department, determined that the cause of the blaze was due to extreme fire damage. It concluded that the fire began on the ground floor. It also determined that all 35 victims died of smoke inhalation. December 6, 2017, a preliminary hearing begins to determine if Almena and Harris could stand trial. On December 14th, a judge decided that the trial could move forward. Okay. April 29th, 2018, Oakland Police body cam reveals that officers went inside the ghost ship a year before the fire and commented about the fire danger in the building and the unsafe construction of it.
This is one of several Oakland PD body cam videos obtained by our media partner, the Bay Area News Group. In this clip, you can hear one of the officers describing the warehouse as a huge fireplace more than a year before the ghost ship burned down.
I'll be so worried about all the electrical wires.
But nothing was ever done. July 3rd, 2018, prosecutors reach a plea deal. Almena and Harris agreed to plead to no contest to 36 counts of involuntary manslaughter, and Almena would receive 9 years in prison and Harris would receive 6 years in prison, okay? But family members of the victims are understandably outraged by this plea deal, right?
We will never see them again. And we just want justice.
August 10th, 2018. The judge overseeing the case discards the plea deal, stating that Almena and Harris did not accept full responsibility or remorse for the fire, and the trial moves forward, right? Okay. As it should.
It was another emotional day in court. Leah Danielle Vega was on the witness stand most of the day. She was a ghost ship resident who described the ghost ship as a stone hut, saying the building was not intended for humans.
August 13th, 2018, in a jailhouse interview, Derek Almena states that he was stunned when he found out that the judge rejected the plea deal that would have resulted in a 9-year prison sentence for him. August 15th, 2018, Max Harris's attorney announces that he will file a motion to sever his client's case from Derek Almena's case after the judge denied the plea deal because Almena didn't show enough remorse. September 7th, 2018, the judge sets a trial date. December 11th, 2018, attorneys for the defendants in the ghost ship fire case file a citizen's arrest for the owners of the Oakland warehouse and the city officials that visited the warehouse prior to the fire. April 30th, 2019, the trial begins. prosecutors read the names of all 36 people who died in the fire during opening statements. Along with this, they showed text messages that were sent by the victim's family to the members before they died. June 17th, 2019, Max Harris takes the stand to try to diminish his role in the ghost ship tragedy, but it was later debunked by prosecutors.
The two men who ran the warehouse struck a deal with the DA today. Derek Almena got 9 years, but will likely serve 3.5, while Max Harris got 6, but should be out in less than 2 years.
We just wanted some justice, some fair justice.
You saw what occurred, which was wholly unexpected.
Alameda County Superior Court Judge James Kramer rejected the ghost ship fire plea deal.
He has never been remorseful at all.
Almena's actions appear to play the largest role in the judge rejecting the joint plea deal.
We'll be going after the landlord, the slumlord. We'll be going after the fire department. We'll be going after Child Protective Service. We'll be going after the sheriff. We'll be going after Oakland Police.
July 16th, 2019, testimony ends. July 29th, 2019, closing arguments begin. July 31st, 2019, deliberations begin. September 5th, 2019, the jury acquits Max Harris on all 36 counts of involuntary manslaughter, and the judge declares a mistrial for Derek Almena after the jury is deadlocked 10-2. October 4th, 2019, Derek Almena's request for a bail reduction is denied, and he is ordered to stay in jail until his next trial. May 4th, 2020, Derek Almena is released from jail as a result of the coronavirus. He is placed on house arrest, and it is most likely that he will not serve any jail time. All right, guys, if you're still here, thank you. I love and appreciate you so very much. Please leave me a like and comment and subscribe if you haven't yet and if you feel so inclined to do so. And until next time, stay safe out there.